Hello, and welcome to this evening's Brookline Booksmith virtual event with author Janet Evanovich to celebrate The Recovery Agent in conversation with Elle Cosimano. My name is Rachel, and I'm a bookseller for Brookline Booksmith in Brookline, Massachusetts. To those of you who are familiar with our store and our event series, it's wonderful to have you back. And to everyone who's with us for the first time, welcome. We really appreciate having all of you here as part of our community tonight, and so appreciate your support of an independent bookstore and truly fabulous authors through your participation and through your book purchases. Now, this evening, we are thrilled to have Janet and Elle with us. Moderator Elle Cosimano is a USA Today best-selling author, an International Thriller Award winner, and an Edgar Award nominee. Elle's debut novel for adults, Finlay, Donovan is Killing It, kicked off a witty, fast-paced contemporary mystery series, which was a People magazine pick and was named one of New York Public Library's best books of 2021. In addition to writing novels for teens and adults, her essays have appeared in the Huffington Post and Time. Cosimano lives with her husband and 2 sons in Virginia. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Elle.
Thank you for having me.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's featured author. Over the last 25 years, #1 New York Times bestselling author Janet Evanovich has written a staggering 28 novels in the Stephanie Plum series. In addition to the Plum novels, Janet has co-authored the New York Times bestselling Fox and O'Hare series, the Night and Moon series, the Lizzie and Diesel series, and the Alexandra Barnaby novels, and the graphic novel Troublemaker with her daughter Alex Evanovich. This evening, Janet and Elle will be sharing conversation about The Recovery Agent. Called a rollicking series launch by Publishers Weekly, The Recovery Agent follows agent Gabriella Rose on her quest to come up with enough money to save her family's home. A professional locator of missing assets, naturally, Gabriella decides to solve her problem by pursuing long-lost treasure. But, for better or worse, this can only be found with the help of her ex-husband. It is a true honor to have Janet and Elle with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming them both now.
Many, many thanks to Brookline Booksmith and to all of our virtual guests who are joining us tonight. It is an incredible honor for me to be here with Janet Evanovich, who I am a longtime fan. I first discovered the Stephanie Plum novels when my 2 children were very, very small, and I credit those books for saving me during the early years of parenthood with them. It was wonderful to rediscover a love of learning in my adult life because of those books. And it is just such a joy to be here to celebrate tonight with you the release of your newest series, brand new series, beginning with The Recovery. I had the immense pleasure to read the book a little bit early. It just came out this week, and I'm sure a lot of our virtual guests tonight have not yet had a chance to read it. It was a joy. It was so much fun. Rollicking is a fantastic description for it. It was really, truly a great adventure. And I thought maybe we could start tonight, if you would, just to tell us a little bit about this brand new series and the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, first of all, I don't know about rollicking. Rollicking, I wrote a book that's rollicking. I'm not sure about that. It's an adventure story. It's I wanted to do for a long time now. I've been wanting to do something that was worldwide, a big Indiana Jones style adventure story. And my protagonist here is she's a daredevil type person, really very different from Stephanie Plum. She's a gourmet cook. She's a fashionista. She's a martial arts expert. She is very worldly. She's very well traveled. And her name is Gabriella Rose. And she found out as an adult that she's just very good at finding things. And she works for insurance companies, investigating insurance fraud, finding things for them. She works for billionaires, finding lost items. As an author, it gives me a very wide range, to work on. Where with Stephanie, it was kind of like writing a book in a phone booth. I mean, it all takes place in Trenton, New Jersey, and with Stephanie and her family. But with this, it just opened the world for me, and it's been a lot of fun to write. Like I said, it's just about this woman who finds out she's very good at finding things, and comes from a small coastal town, Scoon, South Carolina, that has had some hard times. And she's placed in this position where she has an opportunity to help save the town. But with this opportunity comes, some difficult things as well, because the key to the treasure resides with her ex-husband, and who happens to be one of my favorite guys now. Of all of the men that I've created, I've always liked Diesel. Diesel is from the Wicked series. He's this big scruffy guy. And every now and then I bring him into the Plum series because I miss him. I just want to have, my Diesel experience. So Rayford Jones is patterned a little bit after Diesel. Kind of mix of Chris Hemsworth and Thor Ragnarok and Diesel and Indiana Jones, and it was just a lot of fun. And these two people love each other and hate each other. They grew up together. They were high school sweethearts. They got married, and it was an immediate disaster. They cannot stop arguing with each other. Nothing. They do not agree on a single thing, not one thing. And here they are, thrown together again on this adventure of a lifetime. So.
I did get Chris Hemsworth vibes from Rayford's character. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because he had that kind of devil may care hair and the surfer kind of scruffy, beachy sort of feel to him, and I just thought he was so endearing as a love interest. But his relationship with Gabriella is really unique. In a lot of stories where we've got these romantic elements, there's, the meet cute for the first time, or maybe they had a very brief history together. These two have a really unique relationship because they were kind of childhood friends and sweethearts, and then they were married. So their history is really significant here. And how is that different in terms of like creating that relationship on the page? It must create such great opportunities, but maybe also some really interesting challenges.
Yeah, no, it was great. I probably had more fun writing this book than maybe any other book, aside from the comic, the graphic novel that I do with my daughter. That's like one of my favorite projects too. But the fact that they had this history, that it was already established, these strong feelings that they had for each other. I mean, they're both very attractive people. There's clearly some physical attraction left. There are some, parts to their history where, I think that these probably are two people who are still in love, or at least they have love for each other. But their personalities are such, and their pattern of behavior over the years has developed into this, remember Moonlighting with Maddie and Dave?
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
One of my favorites.
Okay. So that's sort of where we're at. And
The
that
banter.
was huge fun to write, to have this, this tension between these two people all the time.
And the banter, it's funny you mentioned Maddie and David, because the banter between Gabriella and Rayford has that same sort of feel to it. They know each other so well that they could probably finish each other's sentences. And so the banter moves very quickly, and it's so comfortable, and it's so fun. And it was just fun to be with them as they're at each other, picking at each other. That was great. I want to kind of go back a little bit to Gabriella's character. And you mentioned kind of how different she is from Stephanie Plum. And she's got this this really unique job as a recovery agent. So they're both good at finding things sort of in different respects, but I could see where their characters were so different. Did you find that there were any similarities between them?
Well, I think they're both very tenacious. They get a project and they don't give up on it. So I think that's a similarity. They both have family. They're not out there on their own. Family plays a very large part in the Plum series, and it plays a very large part here too. She goes back to Schoon, back to her roots in this little town that's sort of been destroyed by a hurricane. And, her mom and dad are there, and her grandma Fanny is living in the house because her house has a tree in the middle of it from the hurricane. And so there are some similarities there. And then there's another family member, because Gabriella Rose is a descendant of Blackbeard. She's an illegitimate descendant of Blackbeard, a beautiful Barbados woman named Annie, had a love affair with Blackbeard, gave birth to a daughter. This was many generations ago. And finally, we have Gabriella Rose. And we have Annie's ghost, who Grandma Fanny says talks to her and actually told her where to find the treasure. Now, we're not sure if this is real or not. We're not really sure, but nobody else has seen Annie's ghost except Grandma Fanny. So, and actually, when I wrote the first draft of this, I had a lot of Annie in there, and everybody said, yeah, I don't know. This is a little out there. I think you should, take Annie out a little bit. But she still comes and goes, and she still kind of drives the storyline here. So yeah, there's similarities, and then there are some basic differences. And one of the basic differences is that Gabriella is a gourmet cook, and she has money. She's done very, very well. And she has a townhouse, a condo in New York City, and she likes to shop, and she wears Fendi and La Perla. And so in the beginning of it, I have all of these clothes references for her, right? She's carrying a Fendi bag, and she's got La Perla underwear on, and so I was reading over the comments, which I never do. I never read like the Amazon comments, because they're always terrible in the beginning, like I would be reduced to tears because some of these people are really brutal. But my publicist said, no, the comments are great this time. Everybody's loving the book. So I went on, but there was this one woman who said she was sure she couldn't finish reading the book because it had so many references to all of these high-end products. And she was sure that I was making big bucks off this, that I was getting, all this money from La Perla. And I thought, oh my God, you mean I could have been getting money from this
all the time?
Why did I think of this? Is this true? Could you really, can you really get money like this?
And if she only knew how the La Perla was used later in the book, maybe she would have
she should have kept reading, because
right?
Yeah,
exactly. I love that though. I loved how Gabriella was so confident and capable, and she's such a great heroine. You mentioned the fact that she's a descendant of Blackbeard, and of course we have with part of recovering things is there's a great treasure hunt that's happening here. So we have pirate lore, and we've got some great pirate history in the story. We've got this great lost treasure that Gabriella and Rafer are in pursuit of. Where did your excitement and passion for pirates come from? And could you talk a little bit about some of the research that was involved in creating this particular pirate story?
Yeah, I'm not sure where the pirate thing came from. Maybe, living in North Carolina, and we used to Vacation on the Outer Banks. And I don't know, it's kind of like a bounty hunter. When I saw Midnight Run, and that was what, made me go with the bounty hunter for Stephanie. I thought, wow, it has such cachet, it's just like fun. And I think pirates are sort of the same thing. I'm not sure where I got it, but I thought, there's some of this buccaneer spirit in Gabriella Rose. There's some of that. I mean, Blackbeard, okay, maybe he wasn't a totally nice guy, but pirates were, privateers. They, I mean, there's a whole culture that sort of puts you in a certain mindset for these individuals, these adventuresome people. And the research that I did was, there's everything on the internet. It's just tons and tons and tons of it. And when I originally conceived of doing this, I thought, oh man, I'm going to go to Peru and I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm going to Costa Rica and and then it's COVID and I went nowhere. There's nothing. Everything is Google. I did. So of all the places that this takes place in, the only two places that I've actually been to have been New York and Santa Barbara, and but Costa Rica and a lot of it takes place in Peru, and I only got there by Google, but there's a wealth of information, and maps and mountains, and then I did research on she finds this treasure chest that Annie suggested Rafer had. And she finds Drake's diary. And it's really Drake's diary that sets her off. She's looking for the Seal of Solomon, which is part of the Lost Treasure of Lima. And there is some, I hesitate to say truth, but there's some basis to all of this. I mean, there's like just tons and tons of material written about it. And, and what does the Seal of Solomon look like? And so I don't want to give too much away, and probably half of what I wrote is wrong anyway, but I did the best I could.
Oh, it's fantastic. And you might not have been able to go very many places during the writing of the book because of COVID, but you took your readers to some really fantastic places. I mean, the settings in this book are so lush and they're so exciting. And it was so nice, for me as a reader in my mind, to go to some of these exotic locales and experience these places and adventures with the characters. So you mentioned a few of them. There was, New York, Caribbean, Peru, Costa Rica, California. Are you able or willing to give any hints to the readers about where Gabriella and Rafer may go on another adventure?
No, I haven't actually even thought about that because I'm finishing writing the next Plum. And I'm like, I have limited capacity up here. I can only do one thing at a time. So no, I haven't really thought about it, but there are so many things as a lover of adventure novels and movies. And I grew up reading Uncle Scrooge. I think that's what started it all for me, was Uncle Scrooge comic books, because he was, going to the Klondike and the Amazon and, pyramids, and with Donald Duck and, Huey, Dewey and Louie. And I mean, and that just, and I still get comic books. I mean, that just started it all for me. So there are so many places in the world that, that I want to visit. And because when I write, it's like a movie. It's like I'm in a movie or a television show, and I actually see it. I see my characters in the setting. I see them walking. I see them talking. It's a very visual experience for me. And so, I mean, this is one of the, I'm sure you have this experience too. It's one of the great things about being a writer is that you get up in the morning and you have the privilege of going into a whole other world. You go to your desk and you sit down, and you've created another world that you then move into. And so I actually can't wait to start the next Rafer and Gabriella book. And there are just so many places. I don't know, Egypt, Pakistan. It's endless.
Yeah, and there's so much history and so
Yeah.
many lost treasures that could be explored. It seems like such an amazing opportunity to continue on this already incredible series. So I'm so excited to see where they go next.
Yes, me too.
I would love to ask a question about your process, and because I find this, fascinating, all of it. One of the things I've always loved so much and admired so much about your books is that they incorporate so many elements of so many different genres. So there's comedy and there's romance and there's adventure and there's thrills and there's mystery and now with Annie we've got that little touch of paranormal, that little pinch of paranormal in there, and you move between them so effortlessly, and they just create um, this incredible unique story. And I was wondering if you have a process or what your mindset is as you write these different elements in the story, if you move through them, chronologically from beginning to end, or do you find that your mindset is different when you go into some of these kind of, rompy, fun, hilarious scenes versus some of the more edge of your seat thriller scenes? What's different as you move through the story?
Well, I think that all of those elements, I mean, they're all part of my voice as a writer. And that isn't something that you necessarily consciously think about, that you have so many different genres coming. It's kind of like my head is like this big stew pot, that you throw meat and vegetables in, and then you go to sleep at night, and in the morning it wakes up and you got gravy. It's this new thing. And so I think that all of these different genres, these different parts of writing and life that I like, they're all there. What I am conscious of is pacing and transition. And so you can't have a book that is just all funny. It gets tedious. And I can't write a book that is all romance or all thriller, because it's impossible for me to get away from the humor. I mean, the humor is the easy part for me. Keeping it at bay is the hard part. When to insert it, into a little bit. That's a real thought process, because I think people who deal with humor, I mean, it's always there. It's like you're just standing at a different spot on the earth than everybody else. You're seeing it in a different way. You're laughing at completely inappropriate moments. I mean, I could be in a church service at a funeral and have to control myself because from not giggling about something. I mean, it's just, you just see things from a different perspective. So, but I am very conscious when I'm writing that I need to have, every now and then you need to raise the stakes for the reader. So you need to kill somebody, or you need to kidnap somebody, or you need to have something frightening happen so that the reader pays attention again. Like, oh, this isn't just all fun and games. Something horrible just happened, because you want the reader to experience a variety of emotion. Now, because of who I am and my readers' expectations, I have to be careful of those emotions, because everybody knows my books are going to end well. I mean, everybody knows I'm not going to kill any cats or dogs. I'm not going to have really horrible graphic violence on stage. There are certain things that I, have a promise to my reader that they're not going to experience. But at the same time, then I have to have something that makes them pay attention. And the things that make readers pay attention are little snippets of humor, little snippets of horrible, scary things happening. And then in between, you have to show the reader who these characters are. Every book, the reader should get to know the character just a little bit better in a series. And so you dribble, insight out, and you do that just by reaction, by thought process, by all of these things. So um, the voice of the book is always there for me, and it is what it is, but the mechanics of the book require a lot of tending to. And, you know, and you want to make sure that you don't have a clump of any one thing for pages and pages. You know, you don't want to write 4 pages of narrative because that gets boring. You want to intersperse it with dialogue. You want to intersperse it with action. And so, and transition. And I think the most difficult part of a book, at least for me, is transition. When you're moving your reader from one scene to the next, and to do it seamlessly and effortlessly so the reader is not disrupted. I mean, I can spend an entire day just trying to figure out how to move the reader from a scene in the office to a scene in Stephanie's mom's house.
And in this book, you do it so well. It's the pages just move so quickly. The pace is so spot on. And I was surprised by how quickly I was going through the story, because I would get to the end of a chapter and that transition would be, you know, want to move me right into the next one. And so the paciness of these stories is just fantastic. This is one of those that you can really just devour in even in a sitting or two. And I had a very, very hard time putting it down because of the way that those transitions. You mentioned series and kind of the tricks to series and what makes them work. You've written so many wonderful long-running series with so many really truly memorable characters. What is it that excites you most about this particular series?
I mean, it would have to be the characters. I really like Gabriella and Rafer. I like the dynamic between them. I like the way they look. I like the skill set that they have together. I like working with a heroine. You know, with Stephanie, Stephanie succeeds because she's very tenacious and she has some luck and she has, friends there to help her. This woman succeeds because she's good. She's very good at what she does, and she has a lot of skills. And that was a lot of fun for me. And then, just getting out of Trenton was that was a real treat. I mean, I like Trenton, but but it was fun to be tramping through the jungles of Peru.
You mentioned some of Gabriella's skills, and it occurs to me we might not have mentioned. So we mentioned how very attractive Rafer is, and that is, obviously a wonderful trait. But he's got some unique skills too that I don't think we touched on. What you want to talk to our readers about a little bit more about Rafer and the skills he brings to the table?
Yeah, well, he inherited when they got a divorce. He inherited Aunt Marguerite's house in St. Vincent. And so he, and Gabriella did this intentionally. She didn't want to see any more of Rafer. So she gave him a house in St. Vincent. And I mean, this was just the perfect place for him. And he runs a dive shop, a very successful dive shop. He actually, he's very physical. He's a big, strong guy, and he likes to dive. He likes to surf, but he's also a very good businessman. He's smart, and he likes to have a good time, but there's also more to him than that. And so, that's one of the things that stands out for me. And he's strong. I mean, he's got a lot of, he can tramp through the jungles, he's big. And there's a scene in there where they're in a sort of a canyon, a slot canyon, a very narrow canyon. And they're worried about what's on the other side of the canyon and what they're going to find in the canyon. And there are these two guys, Pepe and Caballo, that I just love. They were auxiliary characters in this book. And so there's Pepe and Caballo, and there's Gabriella, and there's Rafer. And they're going to start out in the slot canyon. And Gabriella starts, she said, she's going to be the leader. And Rafer grabs her by the back of her shirt and pulls her back and says, well, why are you the leader? Why, I should be the leader. And then they have this whole big argument about who should be the leader until Pepe says, well, I think Rafer should be the leader because he's so much bigger. And if that giant ball rolls down the canyon like it did in the Indiana Jones movie, it'll hit him first, and he's better at stopping the big giant ball. And so then Gabriella says, okay, Rafer can go first. But so that's one of his skills, right? He's a big good-looking, scruffy guy, who
and
is
very charming and very, very charming, and a little charismatic in there too. He seems like he could get along with a whole lot of different kinds of people, I think.
Yes, and he's brave. He can flick a snake.
Very important trait in the jungle.
Yes.
Well, I enjoyed their dynamic. I thought it was really fun and unique, and that whole element of bringing them back together after these years, that shared history with them, I just thought was really, really brilliant. I know we're going to be coming short on time, so I did want to ask one more question before Rachel comes back to join us. I know all of your readers who are following along here tonight, watching along tonight, are probably wondering what it is you're working on now and what readers should be on the lookout for from you next.
Yeah, well, I'm working on the next Plum, and that comes out in November. And so I'm about halfway through it, so I'm not going to give away too much on that. It's called Going Rogue, and there's a lot of going rogue in it. And one of the things that I find is that when I go into another heroine, and I've had all these little mini series, the Wicked series and Night and Moon, and when I go into another heroine's head, I always find that when I come back to Stephanie, I know more about her. Like, her character has become enriched somehow. And I think that's true in this Going Rogue book. She has, because she does need to develop. The series has gone on, even though none of us have aged. Stephanie and I we're still the same age we were when we started. And but I like to think that she's gained some skills, she's gained some insight, she's gained some maturity. And I think this book is sort of a reflection of it. And I will give a little hint out, is that Connie actually has been kidnapped. And so it's up to Stephanie to figure this out and to find her. So, because Stephanie is good at finding things too.
Yeah. For those of you who have not yet had a chance to read, at the end of The Recovery Agent, there's a tiny little teaser for the next Stephanie Plum novel. And I was so excited to see that. I jumped right in and started reading. And you're right. I know for you, it probably feels a lot like coming home every time you step back into a Stephanie book and back into her head. But as a Stephanie Plum reader, it feels like coming home too, to sink back into another Plum story. So I'm so excited to see what's next for her. Very, very, very worried about Connie. So, but very excited to see Stephanie back in action. It has been an absolute joy, a career high for me to be here with you tonight to celebrate the release of this book. It is just fantastic. I have had so much fun reading it. I have had so much fun sharing this conversation with you, and kind of getting the behind the scenes story of how this all came to be. It's really, really been truly special. So thank you. And before we turn it over to Rachel, I also wanted to thank Brookline Booksmith for hosting us tonight.
Yes, and I want to say, let's not forget about Finlay.
Yes.
because you have an amazing heroine, and everybody needs to go out and read about Finlay,
Thank you.
who is fun and surprising and unique. And so everybody, I know, this is supposed to be my time and I appreciate it and I had a lot of fun, but we don't want to forget about your book either, because it really is very outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you. It is a thrill to hear that from one of my literary idols. So that's very, very special. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing that conversation with all of us. We are now entering our Q&A session. So I do see we already have a question here in the chat. Please feel free to pop them in the Q&A box as well. I'll be monitoring both. Let's see, this first one, actually, speaking of work that you have forthcoming, we do have a question wondering about Lizzie and Diesel and if we'll see more from the Wicked series.
Yeah, that's always the first question, no matter where I go. And, right now, I started that series and I absolutely loved it. I loved the magical element in it. I loved the characters. I loved Diesel, and then, his cousin Wolf, who is sexy in his own evil way. And, but I ran out of time. I just can't do, all of the books all of the time. So, I keep hoping that I can get back to that. I don't have any plans for a Liz and Diesel book now. But that's why I drag Diesel into the Plum series every now and then, and why I created Rayford Jones, to give me a little bit like Diesel, although he's his own person. So, I would love to see the Wicked series brought to television. I think that Diesel and Wolf are just perfect for the screen. So, and that would give me incentive to get back to writing another book. That would, my publishers would have to squeeze it into the program somehow.
Actually, speaking of, inserting Diesel anywhere that you're able, I'm wondering too, because you had mentioned, right, how he's worked into some of the Plum series novels. And I didn't know, because I haven't had a chance to sneak peek this yet. If you had a chance to sneak any of the characters from the Plum series into Recovery Agent, or if you, I don't know, without saying too much, if you have any plans to do that, or any Easter egg.
Gabriella Rose started in the Plum series.
That's right. Thank you.
Yes, when I said that, I wanted to do this adventure story, this worldwide thing. They suggested that I give her kind of a walk-on part just to introduce her to the reader, and so she actually has a little piece in the Plum series. I don't know if she'll return, because she has her own life now, but she started there.
I always think that's so exciting to have these, richly imagined worlds, and then you never know what you're going to find and where it's going to lead next, which I think is part of what's so exciting about the series in general and the way they can interact. I do see we have a comment here just mentioning that you are my favorite author. I cannot get enough of your books, and your mind is so creative and amazing. That is from Amanda Stevens.
Love this person.
And this does echo much of what I've seen, actually, when I've, in preparing for our event tonight. Time and time again, you have such incredible devoted readers and fans, and it's, it's easy to see why. Let's see.
I do, actually. They're the best, and that's why, I miss not being able to get on the road, because it is fun to be able to connect with these people. And at one time, I was having huge crowds. I was having 2,000 and 3,000 people out to signings. This was before ebooks, and my publishers were worried about my safety. And yeah, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? These are mothers. They're not gonna take any crap from anybody. You don't have to worry about my fans."
No, I would get the sense your fans are looking out for you, if anything.
Yeah, and you know what? And they look out for each other. I had the most amazing signings. they would be massive, and we would give out wristbands with numbers and times and everything and try to entertain people. But it's still, it's long and it's hot and they're standing in line, and instead of getting cranky and rude, and they're all bonding and exchanging Christmas card lists, and making friendships forever. I mean, it's the best experience. I just have the best fans. It's so like reaffirming in human nature, to see this collection of people that they're nice. They're all nice people.
And seeking that kind of connection. And I feel like especially after a time where we've all been so isolated and not been able to connect in quite the same way, that's really special and worth protecting. I did wonder too, when you're talking about your incredible fans, and I understand that you get a lot of feedback from them. And I didn't know if you've ever had any feedback that was especially significant or that has particularly stuck with you.
Well, I get a decent amount of mail, and even people who come to see me at signings that have had very hard times. They've lost a spouse, they've lost a son, they've had breast cancer, and they come and they share this with me, and I hear, you made me smile. I had breast cancer, and I would read you at night before I went to sleep, and I was able, I didn't cry myself to sleep. And I mean, it's, I don't even know how to describe the feeling that it gives you. It's, it's like you don't even feel worthy of this. It's like I do my best. I think of myself as an entertainer, and I try to be positive. I try to be the positive entertainer, and I know that I can make people smile, and I can, and I write about good people. They're not perfect, but they're good. And so it's almost, sort of like a calling. And so when I get feedback like this, it's you take it with you forever. You just and when I sit down and I'm like, I really don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this chair today. I'm tired of writing these books. I haven't got any ideas. I'm fat. I need to get out and get some exercise. I want a glass of wine. What am I doing here? And then, and then it comes back to you, or you get a piece of fan mail, and it's all there, and you feel like, like it's like you're worthwhile, like you did something good. It's, so it's very important, and it's very wonderful. And I'm constantly getting, choked up about it. I mean, I go to signings, and women come and stand there and, burst into tears when they get up to the desk, because it's so important to them. And, and then I'm crying, and then everybody's crying. And then it's, and we're all having this awkward Stephanie moment. And, but it's pretty wonderful. It's really good.
Let's see here. We just got in a whole rush of comments related to those good feelings, mentioning, I've read your books for years. Your books always bring a smile to my face. There's a smile, and I'm always excited to read them. Thank you for letting us be part of your mind and your storytelling. It'd be a dream to meet you one day. We have thank you. Can't wait to wait your new book. And let's see here.
Let's send all these to Amazon. Put them all. Boost my rating, okay?
Oh, this is so lovely, everyone. This really, I mean, it's always wonderful for me to be part of these events and see that kind of connection that everyone's feeling with their authors, and authors with their audience and their readers. There's really nothing quite like it. And hearing you speak about it, Janet, and just how much it touches you is quite powerful. Let's see here. We do have a question wondering how many hours a day you write. You're talking about sitting in your chair, and sometimes you're like, I just want to get up. It must be a lot of time.
Yeah, I have a long day, because I'm a very slow writer. I start out with a very sketchy outline. I know where I'm going to begin and where I'm going to end. And I know a few things in the middle. I know what I want to accomplish in terms of emotion and relationship. And then I plot ahead. I go to bed with a steno pad and I write little notes to myself, and that's where I move forward. And then I'm up at about 5:30, 6 o'clock. And, I take my coffee and my little dog and go into my office. And that's always the best, most productive time of the day for me, is the morning. And then but basically I write all day. I like the continuity of writing every day. Most of the time I put in a long day. I write until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I break for dinner. And then sometimes I'll go back and I'll write for a couple hours after dinner. Now, I take a half a day off to go shopping, and my husband and I go out on date night sometimes, go out to a restaurant. But I put a lot of hours in, and I try to work every day because I need that continuity, and I like it. I like seeing my work progress through. I like looking at, what I've accomplished. And there's something about seeing those pages add up. You've got 5 pages, and then you've got 35 pages, and then you've got 49 pages. And then before you know it, you're past the 150 mark. And then one day you finish the book, and you're like, oh my God, how did I do that? How did I write 300 pages? I did it again. How many years have I been doing this? And I did it again. And then comes the fear, right? Because you're always afraid that it's going to suck. I mean, you finish that book, and the thing that is always in the front of your mind is, I don't want to disappoint the reader. And that you're going to sometimes, because not all books are created equal. I mean, no matter how hard you try and how good your ideas are, some books are just better than others. And some books are better than others for certain people. Some of my readers want her to go to bed with Joe. Some of them want her to have a good time with Ranger. Some of them, so, but you finish the book, and there is that, that hesitancy almost to send it out, because once it leaves your desk and it starts going through that edit, the publishing process, then it no longer belongs to you. Then the book belongs to the world, to other people, to your publisher, to your readers. And then, oh my God. And then the day that it's published, that publication day, is like total nausea. It's like, I don't want to hear anything about it. Don't tell me if people don't like it. I don't want to know. So yeah, it's a bit, and then you keep coming back for more, though, because there are those amazing people that tell you, that you made a difference.
It's so vulnerable to put it out there. And then I think, especially with fans like yours, hopefully they're, high risk, high reward, I think.
Yeah, and it never gets any better. You would think that, like, after all this time, it would get old and you'd get a little complacent about it. And, it is what it is. But you don't. I think if anything, it just becomes more intense, because you have this, you keep getting more and more readers that are depending on you to give them this experience. And so, and when you stop worrying and caring about that, then probably you should stop writing. Although the big bag of money at the end of the rainbow is good. That might keep me writing for a couple more books, I guess.
That helps too. We do have a couple of comments here wondering about the potential of a collaboration, actually. Noting in particular that, let's see, love for both of your books, both the Finlay and Stephanie, and wondering in particular about whether the two of them would meet at any point. And also just remarking that, say, I've never been able to find a heroine as fun as Stephanie until recently, when I started the Finlay Donovan series.
There you go. You see?
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I feel like that too.
That's amazing. That's such a huge compliment. And I love hearing that. So thank you.
I love when, folks get inspired, like you start to, because the characters are so richly imagined, you start to picture them interacting and crossing over into each other's worlds.
Yes, only in my mind. I don't have a lot of crossover characters. For one reason is that, just trying to keep track of them is enough. I mean, when I finish a book, it's gone. It's like my head is empty. I only have, limited capacity up there. So I'm always dumping books and moving on to the next one. And then if I had to take a character from a previous book, I'd probably get it all wrong. And I have to go back and reread to make sure I know who I'm talking about. I mean, when I was writing romance, that was the worst because I was doing like 3 and 4 of those little romance novels in a year. And I would have to tack the names up on my computer screen so I would remember who I was writing about. It was.
And yeah, I must admit, even just thinking about one series and on its own, I don't know how I could keep it all straight. It's quite remarkable. We do have an additional question here about collaborations for you, Janet, wondering, would you consider more collaborations where you direct the overall effort, but perhaps leave the writing to another person, kind of like the Dolly Parton, James Patterson story?
I don't know. I guess it would depend on if the right person came along. If Chris Hemsworth wanted to collaborate with me, let's see, The Rock. I could find a few people that I would be willing to do that with, but a collaboration is very difficult. My collaborators actually usually do the heavy lifting, and then I come in at the end and sprinkle some fairy dust around. And, we talk about it in between then. And like Lee Goldberg, I did a bunch of books with Lee Goldberg, and we're very successful. But it's an odd, it's an odd experience when you're used to writing your own books and then you have a collaborator that you're working with. And I'd like to think that I'm, sort of a collaborative person, but the book comes out and, it's like you're reading this book and it's like wearing somebody else's underpants. It's like, it's just a little uncomfortable. You're not sure.
I like that description.
Great.
Let's see. We have a question here wondering, and I don't know how much you can divulge, but wondering if Ranger and Lula will be in the next Plum book.
Well, of course, it wouldn't be a Plum without Ranger and Lula and Joe and, and Grandma Mazer. And nope, they're all back. And I mean, that is, the most difficult part is Ranger and Joe, is because I don't want this to turn into a family saga, and keeping that sexual excitement alive and balanced and not turning Stephanie into a total slut, is very difficult.
Here we've got more just lovely comments that I would want to make sure you hear. Mentioning thank you so much for your books. You are my favorite author, and just remarking on the humor that you weave through them. They say they keep me going on days when it's not good. I'm an RN, and lots of work days are not good, and I listen to your books coming home and feel so much better. Just seeing that impact that your words have. We do have a couple of questions here, wondering about advice that you would give to writers. One comes from a teacher teaching first and second graders and noting that students can be reluctant writers at times. So just wondering, what advice would you give to a teacher to inspire students? And the other is wondering in general, we've got the question about just for all aspiring writers, what do you know about the writing process that you wish you knew when you first started?
Well, what I know about kids, because I have 3 grandchildren, and I think that for young readers, for kids who are starting out, I think what's really important is to give them things to read that they enjoy. You don't have to learn from everything. Sometimes you just want to enjoy things. Let them read Captain Underpants. Let them read, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Let them read adventure comics. whatever gives them excitement about reading. That's what's important at that age. And find out what it is that they love and they're interested in, and let them read that. Don't, I mean, especially when they start to go into the older grades, I find that kids, because I talk to, kids a lot. They come to the signings, and at some point in school, they're forced to read things that are, classics, and have social messaging, and what happens is they don't ever want to read a book again. And by the time they get to high school, so many kids are turned off at reading, because what they've been fed to read has not been anything they're interested in, and has not been enjoyable. So I think it's important that we just get kids to love reading. When they get older, and as young adults, there are all these things that they can explore and grow with. But when they're kids, I just get them to love reading. And when it comes to people who are trying to write, I think it's important that you try to write every day. You look at it like a job. If you took a part-time job at 7-Eleven, no matter what your day was like, when your shift came up at 6:30, you would be there and you would work for 3 hours. And you sort of have to look at, if you're serious about wanting to write, you have to look at it that way a little bit, is that you need to write. And I think you also need to believe in yourself. When somebody says to you, "What do?" You say, "I'm a writer." And you don't have to say, I haven't gotten published yet, because you can still be a writer and be unpublished. But there's something about the mindset. There's something about having the guts, the courage to say, "I'm a writer," to say it out loud. Now, I have to admit, I said that for 10 years and was never published. And it got to be a little embarrassing after a while. But, not everybody is such a slow learner that it takes them 10 years to get published. But there is just something about laying it out and putting yourself on the line and admitting to yourself that that's who you are inside, that that's who you want to be, and saying it out loud. So I think you have to stick with it. You have to keep trying to be better. You have to do a lot of reading, and you have to believe in yourself.
Thank you for that. Hard to believe that we're actually coming up on the hour. And I think on that truly, inspirational and empowering note, we are at our end. So I'd really like to thank, all of you for coming out tonight to be with our reading community. And I'd again like to thank you, Elle and Janet, so much for spending time with us. For those of you who've not yet had a chance to purchase a signed copy of your book, you can do so through the link that I just popped in the chat. It's right where you registered. Those books will be available through 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then certainly on our shelves as well. Thank you all so much again.
Thank you.